So the first thing you'll probably notice if you are thinking about stacking gold is that there is a variety of different pieces, different sizes, different designs, even different metal alloys, and there's an array of different dealers. So today we're going to clear up a lot of those things for you. Obviously I'm not here to make a decision for you, but I'll give you a bit of information so you can go ahead and make a sensible decision to start your stacking journey. So maybe you already own a little bit of gold, maybe you own a bit of silver, or maybe you are just starting out. So whatever the case, when you come to buy gold, there are obviously a range of different pieces, different sizes, and so on. Now, there are pros and cons with each, and depending on what part of the world you're in, you are probably going to have some pieces that are more desirable, more liquid, and more common than others. So for example, this is a Royal Arms coin. It's minted in the UK at the Royal Mint, and this is a Britannia. So the Royal Arms is basically a fancy Britannia, if you like. So some coins, they are different to the sort of bread and butter, and with those, occasionally, if you're picking them up at the release price, or maybe just you catch a deal at a dealer's, you might get them at a very similar premium. But then if you look at something like this Queen's Beast coin, this completer coin, these have got very popular in the last few months, and when they were coming out they were a few pounds more than the normal Britannia. So if you picked up these instead of Britannias, you could obviously flip those from your stack and pocket the difference, basically buy Britannias back. You would have the same amount of gold, but you would have taken a little bit of profit. Or you could simply keep them, admire the nice design and just have that bit more equity there in the stack. So there are options. You also have, like I mentioned, different sizes. Now this is a gold sovereign. The more modern ones do look a bit more shiny and a bit more coppery coloured. If you look at the obviously more yellow gold coins and then at these sovereigns are 22 carat gold, whereas the three previous 1 ounce coins I showed you were pure gold, so 24 carat. Now it doesn't really matter in terms of the bullion value, you're only paying for the gold content, but in some countries it is more advantageous to have pure gold. In some countries it doesn't really matter. So if you're in the UK, the sovereigns or the Britannias, they're treated the same in terms of capital gains and VAT, as in they're not liable for either. But if you're in other countries, then sometimes the 22 carat, so non-pure gold, is treated differently. I believe Australia and Canada have to pay GST on those, and perhaps some states in America. So just depending on where you are, just check what that is. Now, if you're in America, obviously the gold eagles are 22 carat, much like these sovereigns are. And if you are there, you've got different rules in different states. So be sure to check those out and just make sure you're informed before you are buying. Now, it doesn't necessarily do any harm to have a bit of variety in the stack. Some people just prefer a more uniform stack. Some people want as many different coins and as many different pieces as possible. Just remember though that gold is gold until you come to sell it. So what I mean by that, if you're going to go to a gold dealer, a coin shop for example, then some might pay you a little premium for certain coins, but others will just pay you whatever the scrap value of gold is. So whether it's a Queen's Beast completer, whether it's a sovereign, Britannia, they'll just pay you for the gold value. They're not going to discriminate, and therefore, if you come to sell, you want to work out which places might give you the best price. Now, obviously on the second-hand market, if you're just going to sell peer-to-peer, that's all well and good if you know somebody you can sell to, or if you can demonstrate a reputation somewhere. So perhaps on eBay you obviously have feedback and things like that. If you're on other forums, perhaps you can do something similar. And there are various social media groups which, to be honest, I don't have any of the social medias, but they are an option if you are using those. So here you can see 3 coins which are all 22 karat gold. Now they do look different colours because they have different finishes, and it doesn't really make any difference to the gold value. Some people prefer the newer sovereigns. in their eyes they perhaps have less time to have been faked, and they're just newer, it's easier to get them in nicer condition. And other people just like classic coins like the Krugerrand, and they're not really that bothered what they're buying, as long as it's something fairly recognizable. So lessons to take away: you can get lucky buying things that are a little bit different to the norm, and they can appreciate in price, but also it can backfire. So if you were to pay for something at a higher premium now, once the premium's already risen, then perhaps the market calms down and nobody really cares so much anymore. And in that case, you would have been better just sticking to the basic Britannia, or maybe a maple if you're in Canada, kangaroos in Australia, etc., and various different places. So that is the main point to consider. Think about your exit. Even if you're planning on dying and just being buried with the gold, if that doesn't happen, if you do need to sell at some point in the short term, just remember that the premium that you pay, you might lose that. So if the gold price is the same, even though you have bought the gold, the price hasn't dropped, hasn't gone up, you might still get a little bit less back than you originally invested, because the dealers have premiums on their coins, and that is basically the money on top of the gold that you're buying that the dealer uses to keep the lights on, and so on. So those are some different coins, some different points to think about, and I'd be keen to know if you are new to stacking or if you have been stacking a while. Let me know. By all means, this isn't a conclusive list of everything you need to consider, but just some points to get you pointed in the right direction. So if you enjoyed this video, you might like this one here coming up next, and we'll talk soon.